Hey everybody, it's May 8th, 2018. Spring has sprung here in New England, and along with it has arrived the outdoor flea market and yard sale season, garage sales and whatnot. So we're going to do a flea market find segment. I'm going to show some of the stuff that I scored this weekend. Got a couple of large items. We'll get to those at the end of the video. Decided I was going to do this outdoors today because I noticed the video quality is much better than when I'm down in the shop. Quick announcement. What's coming up? Let's see, probably just uploaded a couple of videos. My son Aiden and I fixing a Craftsman lawnmower. Mark and I are going to be working on another Craftsman lawnmower. So that's my youngest son. So we're going to do it again. Those were the two lawnmowers that were curbside, free for the taking. We brought one back to life. It's already on to its next owner. We got one similar to it. Like I said, Mark's going to work on that one with my guidance, and we'll hopefully get that one going and sell it. Got my Steel MS2 90 chainsaw. Still have to finish putting that all together. What else? The 350 utility tractor project. We're still moving forward with that. We being me and the mouse in my pocket. I've got the taper cut. I've just got to put the threads on the end of that steering column, and then I can actually start putting those parts back into the steering box that's welded permanently to the tractor. Let's see, what else we got going? People are wondering about the Tower of Power series. Well, there's not really much left to do to that motor until I have a boat to put it on. So I'm toying with the idea of fixing the transom on the Old Town fiberglass boat, the one that everybody says I should junk. And if we fix the transom, make it good and solid, then we'll probably put the Tower of Power back on that. I already bought used replacement brackets off of eBay because the one of the things that happened in that mishap was that the brackets cracked on the motor. But we'll be able to rescue that, I think. I probably will have to do a start, see how it fared through the winter, so to speak. So maybe we'll do a Tower of Power, just to kind of put the muffs on it, pump some water through it, get it running again, just to prove that it still runs. All right, enough of that. Let's get into this mess right here. So some of the first items I snagged early on were, I saw this nice little small parts organizer. And I've actually got a couple of these. I haven't even put anything in yet, so I really didn't need, there's no rush to get another one, but just for the heck of it, I asked what he wanted for it, and I think he asked 10 bucks, and I said, He said, well, what were you thinking? And I says, to be honest, I was going to offer you 5, and he says, yeah, I'll take 5. So I got this for 5 bucks. So for 5 bucks, I couldn't pass it up. Clearly, this was part of a, there's probably several of these that could stack, so the feet of the one above it would fit in here and they would stack. I might even have one that would stack on this. That's actually, I have one that's a Kennedy, looks identical to this, except that it's the dark brown Kennedy color here, and I think the drawers are plastic, but it's almost the same design. So I have no idea who made this one. Don't really care. It's just a nice little organizer for 5 bucks. That was a good deal for 5 bucks. And one of the first vendors that I started picking through tools, he just had boxes and boxes laid out with all kinds of just stuff in them. All kinds of tools and junk and hardware, and it was all mixed together. There were 5-gallon pails you had to dig through, and it was clear that, his whole thing was nothing was priced. It was all about, just make a pile, bring it over to the tailgate of his truck, and then, we'll work something out. So I start looking through the boxes, and I see a lot of junk. And as a matter of fact, a couple of the items I initially picked up, I couldn't even find enough stuff in some of the other boxes and bins to make it worthwhile, so I put some stuff back. But then I'd find a couple items, and I'd be like, oh, so I might as well go back and grab the other pieces. And this is what I grabbed, this little pile right here. So these 5 little items. This is a air chisel or air hammer chisel. This one's actually marked Sears on it, so it's actually probably a decent one. Maybe one step up from Harbor Freight, but it's clearly never been used.
So it's brand new, and it'll probably fit my air hammer. So I got that. That was the item I put away when I couldn't find nothing else. And then all of a sudden I spotted this bevel protractor, and I was like, oh, the bubble's not broken on it. It's all dirty. But then I noticed, son of a gun, it's an early LS Strut. So I added that to the pile. Then I found some calipers here and there, and I looked at several of them were badly rusted. I couldn't make out the names on them, or I couldn't see any names on them. But I spotted this one, also clearly an LS Strut. Good condition. Inside caliper. This is a Brown and Sharp. And this little itty bitty scale right here is also an LS Strut company, Athol, Massachusetts miniature scale. So I got this whole pile. I bring it over to the back of the truck, and I'm, already in the mode where I'm going to dicker with whatever he comes at me, whatever he comes at me with for a price. I'm already going to counter that, right? He says, $4. So, needless to say, there was no. It would be insulting to the man to dicker, to grind him down from $4 for two Strut pieces. I'm sorry, 3 Strut pieces, a Brown and Sharp, and a Sears. Yeah, so anyways, we like that vendor. And the funny thing is, on the way back out, because he was close to where we had come in, on the way back out, we went back by there one more time, and he was down to basically all items were 25 cents a piece. So we picked again, and I found actually, the funny thing, I wasn't going to bother, but my son, who was with me, he wanted some little item. I forgot what it was. It was a little Master Mechanic all-in-one screwdriver. It had a built-in flashlight that shined on where you were gonna, use the screwdriver. It had a, all the little bits went in the handle, and it also had, I have to admit, this was kind of neat. It had a magnetic telescopic pickup that came out of the center. So when it was recessed, it acted as the magnet that would hold the bits in place. But if you wanted to, you just gave it a little flick of the wrist, and it would stick out, and you could telescope it, and you could use it as a magnetic pickup tool for if you drop a screw down inside somewhere. So, hey, he wanted it for 25 cents. And then I was like, well, let me find 3 more items and make it $1. So we'll get to that. Well, actually, you know what? Let's get that out of the way right now. Where are my 25-cent, my 3 25-cent items that I only got because I wanted to make it an even buck? Machinist clamp, no name, okay, probably homemade, but 25 cents. Who cares, right? One of these, okay, this is the Creative Tool Incorporated of Bennington, Vermont Easy Driver. I've got a couple of these. I actually like these things. You can get a good grip on them. It's a ratcheting driver. And the way it works is it only goes one direction, so the reverse direction, you just pop this off. But it's 1/4 inch, standard 1/4 inch, so you can put any one of your, screwdriver tip or Torx bits in there. And that's a handy little tool, and it's made right in Vermont, I think. So I think this is like the 3rd one of these I have now. 25 cents. And another caliper. How do you like that? And this is an LS Strut inside caliper. Where are you going to get it? I know it's rusty, but come on. Where are you going to get a Strut inside caliper for 25 cents? At this guy's booth, that's where. So then I'm going along and I spot this at this guy's booth, and I'm like, oh boy. I said, I've got a few of these. I had one of these that was all rusted to heck. And it was actually belonged to my father. I remember my father using it when I was a kid for just any old odd nut screw or piece of hardware. It would just kind of go to die in that box. And unfortunately, it had been left in the barn over the years. It had just gotten so wet and rusty. I actually ended up selling it at, I think, one of our yard sales because apparently they have a little bit of collectability to them. Then I saw this one and I realized, boy, that's really clean. I've got 2 or 3 of these that I don't use. I bought them at an estate sale, I think, and the reason why I bought them was because they have the original cardboard sleeve on them that was used for advertising, and it has kind of like a little, you know, caricature or graphic on the side of some, you know, hobbyist or some handy guy, you know, storing his stuff. And I just thought they were kind of neat. And then I saw this one and I was like, boy, you know, since these things are so hot right now, I'm just going to ask what the heck the guy wants for it. So he says, how about $5? I told the guy I didn't want, there was a whole bunch of little hardware and stuff in there. The only thing I kept were these, see these little jeweler's screwdrivers? Seems like I'm always breaking these, so I kept these. It was, they were little, this bottom drawer was filled with plastic gears, nylon gears. Didn't really care about that. I only wanted the box. So I got this box for $5, and then I thought I was pretty much done with that vendor and I was going to be able to get out of there relatively unscathed. And I happened to look down on the ground. He had a tarp laid down with junk all over it. And I spotted this box right here. So I was like, what's that gauge you got there? And he says to me, it's a hydraulic pressure gauge. He said he had a really big shop press, and it was on his shop press, and I forgot what the story was, why he took it apart or why he took it off. Maybe it's broken for all I know, who knows. But long and the short of it was, it's a hydraulic gauge. It's one of these ones that's got this fluid. You can see it's got fluid inside of it. And this one's marked, it says tons on 2.5-inch diameter ram. And it says helicoid. Helicoid, helicoid, made in the USA. So I don't know, see, I don't know whether or not there's stuff leaking out of here, or if this is just, I think this is just from it sitting in this box, because evidently he just threw the stuff when he disconnected it in this cardboard box, and stuff leaked out of the hoses and everything. This is marked right here, warning. Failure resulting in injury or damage may occur if gauge is misapplied. And then it says refer to ANSI B40-1. So I don't know. There's a part number right on it, so I guess I could look up the specs and see what it can be used for. And then we got several good condition hydraulic hoses in here, and a bag of miscellaneous hydraulic fittings, and this looks like maybe a manifold, sort of, I don't know. Anyways, normally I would pass on this kind of thing because it's just another thing that's going to lay around until I figure out what a good use for it is, until I asked him how much he wanted for it, and he said $5. I said, oh, I was almost disappointed when he told me $5 because at $5 I had to take it. You know, so next vendor I stopped at, he had 3 chucks, and I looked at the chucks, and 2 of them were, you know, they might have been Jacobs key chucks, and I've got plenty of those, and I happened to spot this keyless chuck, and it intrigued me. And I looked at it, it's marked 3-16, and it's marked 1/8 to 5/8 inch, and that's the only markings I can find on this thing. All right, so I have no idea who the manufacturer is of this chuck. It really operates smoothly. So it's got surface rust on it. Of course, it's just got this straight shank on it. But I figured if it was cheap enough, I'd take a chance on it. So I dickered with him and ended up finally getting him to take $7 for this chuck and these 2 wrenches that I found in his piles of stuff. So this one's in all Billings. It's pretty beat up. All right. And then this one here is in really good shape. It sure looks like a lathe wrench to me, which is why I snagged it. It's got a number on it, either 556 or 558. No, it looks like it's a 556. Well, a little bit of searching and I got a little bit more information. The 3-16 denotes 3 millimeter to 16 millimeter, because that is the metric equivalent, roughly, of 1/8 to 5/8. Now, there are 2 chucks that I've found online that share that kind of notation like that. One is an Albrecht, which I don't believe this is an Albrecht chuck, because the Albrecht chucks, almost all of them are marked clearly. The other one is a Rohini, which is a Rohini Spiro, which is on eBay and made in Germany. And then I didn't find one, but the other name that comes to mind is Rohn, I think, R-O-H-N, which also I believe is German. They make a keyless chuck this style. So I think it's either a Rohini or a Rohn. Up here on this ring, I was able to find right there, it's kind of hard to see, but it does say Germany. So it is made in Germany, so it's got that going for it. You know, $7. Wasn't able to get anything definitive on this wrench. I now think that this over here doesn't say S/B. I think it's just 5/8. Same size. Next vendor I came across, he had, clearly he was a welder. What caught my eye was this pair of cant twist clamps. And if I could buy cant twist clamps cheap enough, I don't pass them up. So when I asked him how much for this pair of cant twist clamps, he said $5. That's all I needed to hear. These are 4.5 inch. And they've got these plastic soft jaws almost like on them. And this one was missing, but I didn't really care about that, so. Anyways, nice pair of cant twist clamps for $5. Next guy I stopped at, he had a tarp, and he had all stuff laid out on the tarp, and he had a cardboard sign on the tarp that basically said all items on the tarp $2. I spotted this. This is a roto tool. It's a Fairchild. It's interesting, 110 volt to 120 volt AC DC. So this must be pretty early. Fairchild Industries of Burlington, Vermont. I have absolutely no way. I had no way of testing it, so I have no way of knowing. Had no way of knowing whether it worked or not. But it was complete. Even the collets in there. It's even got a little grinding stone still left in it. So I figured for $2, I was definitely going to take a chance on that. Then I found a cardboard box on his tarp, and in the cardboard box there were a bunch of like carbaloy and stuff. Cutting bits for lathe. Well, I've got a bunch of those, and as it is, I hardly use any of them. I mean, I've got more than I need. And so I asked the guy, I said, so is everything in this box $2 a piece? And he says, well, I give you a really good deal on the whole box. And I think he said like $20 for the whole box. I didn't really care about the lathe bits, but I would have bought the whole box if I could have got it for $10. But when he didn't want to take my $10 for the whole box, I said, then I'm just going to give you $2 a piece for these. Sine bars. Homemade, probably some machinist project somebody made. Maybe even a high school project, I don't know. That's a little one there. Not marked. Whoever made this one didn't even bother putting their name on it. Well, I tell you, he couldn't have got that hole much closer to the edge, could he? Look at that. It was even starting to break out. This one's kind of nice. It's a good size one here. That's probably like a 12 inch. Little bit of surface rust, but nothing we can't deal with. So I've got some sine bars now. At some point, I'll probably just go through them and kind of figure out which ones I want to keep, which ones I want to get rid of. But for $4 for the pair, I thought that was a good deal. So the next vendor I stopped at, I've actually seen him at other shows and other places and bought from him in the past. He always has an interesting assortment. He just does estate cleanouts and that. And so I picked through his some of his boxes when I was there, and I spotted this, and I was like, oh, what the heck we got there? And then I looked at it, and I was like, oh, hey, I know that name, WaveTek. I remember we had some WaveTek test equipment that was donated to my WaveTek high school back in the 80s. And it was high-end equipment back then, if I'm not mistaken. So I took a look at this thing and I was like, wow. It's a frequency generator. It says HF, which is high frequency, VCG, which is probably voltage controlled generator, or VCG generator. So that would be redundant, right? So it must be voltage controlled gain? I don't know. A model 142. Had no idea what the value was, had no idea whether or not it worked. We're going to have to try and find a cord for it. It uses one of these oval shaped cords. Okay, and I asked him, I said, hey, what do you want for this? He said $5. Sold. So this is going to be either a nice score for $5 or a piece of junk. I think the last one of these I saw sell on eBay, which I think was in working condition, only brought like $40. So it's definitely not a high-end, high dollar item. It is interesting to me, though, the frequency in hertz. Okay, so it goes down pretty low in frequency, but we got times 10. All right, so we're definitely we're in the audio range here. Times 10K. So if I put this at 2 and this is on, where's that'd be 20,000 hertz at that range. And then times 1 mil, so that'd be 1 million hertz, which would be, what is that, 100 kilohertz? Something like that. I don't know. Anywho, at some point maybe we'll play with this thing. Just out of curiosity, because it's so easy to open up. Let's just see what it looks like inside. Oh yeah. Beautiful. Look at that. All discrete electronics. PC board. Got the Allen Bradley style resistors in it though. That's good. Not bad. Got the little heat sinks there on those little transistor packages. The good news is I don't see a lot of rust or corrosion in this thing. Nicely done PC board. Yeah, this is old school. Look at this. This is all solid. This is all solid aluminum, machined. Slow blow fuse is not blown. That's a good sign. Down under here, we got some 4 good size axial lead electrolytic capacitors. Those are probably going to be skunked. So I was pretty proud of myself. Up until this point, I hadn't spent any really big money on anything. Like $5, $10, that's it, Actually, not even $10, I don't think, at that point. And then later in the day, I went back to this vendor that I just got that WaveTek from, and I decided to pick through his stuff a little more, and ended up finding one large item that was sitting there, which at first I was like, hey, I was surprised to see it there. And then I was thinking, hey, you know what? I could use that, but he's probably going to want more money than I'm willing to pay for it. Because it's the kind of thing that I was going to, well, I'll tell you, there's a whole little story to it, and then I'll get to it in a moment. So anyway, so I ended up going back and forth with him. He wanted $100 for it, and then I offered him 60. He said, nah, I can't do 60. And then I think he said like 85, and I said, how about 75? And he said, okay. So I bought this thing for 75. I'm going to show you in a moment. And then before I paid him for that, I said, oh, let me look around just a little more. And I found these items here and got the $75 item plus these items for $80, which means I paid $5 for these items right here, which I've got. It's a nice punch. No name to be found anywhere on it, but it's a good, looks like it's pretty good quality. Still usable. I got a ton of these various kind of punches like this, but yeah, what the heck. Found this, got some surface rust on it, and nothing too fancy, but it's an indicator. rod with a swivel clamp on it. Okay, so originally probably was part of a magnetic indicator stand that went missing. Seal puller, 25014. It says Taiwan right on it, so clearly not, you know, not the expensive quality or whatever. But the thing is, I thought about it and I realized, you know, I don't have one of these. And I've often been in a situation where I wish I had one of these. So this is a seal puller, for those of you who aren't aware, very popular in automotive use. You want to pull out wheel bearing seals, you can get this sharp hook on behind it, and then this will wedge on the other end of the hub, and you could pop a seal out of a bore fairly easily with this. And you get a couple different radiuses here to play with. So this is for obviously for much smaller ones, and this is for larger ones. So I was happy to get that. Essentially, I paid $1 a piece for each of these items, right? And then I had these things, and I wanted to get just a couple more items, and I happened to spot these 2 containers of WaveTek full synthetic 75W140 gear lube, unopened containers, quarts by the looks of it. They're 1 quart. So I got these for $1 a piece. And for those of you who don't know WaveTek, I believe, is the store brand that Tractor Supply Company sells for cheap oil and hydraulic fluid. But it is full synthetic, so even though it's cheap full synthetic, still it's definitely worth $1 a quart, right? So this is what I scored for 75 bucks. And the reason why I didn't want to really buy one of these was because I know I'm going to use it like once, and then I'm not going to want it around anymore, taking up room. And what this is a wall-mounted strut compressor. Okay, it actually says right here, this particular one is a Brannick model 7200 strut spring compressor. Now, when I asked the guy how much he wanted for this, he said, I think they're like 140 bucks brand new, so he wanted to get $100 for it. Now, it's got a lot of surface rust on it. Clearly it was left outside somewhere. The funny thing is, I think 140 bucks is what like the Harbor Freight one of these is worth. This particular one, I didn't even look yet to see if this is made in the USA. This says Brannick Industries, Fargo, North Dakota, USA. So I don't know if it's foreign made and then imported by them, or if they actually make this in the USA. But son of a gun, I looked this thing up online. This must have been pretty expensive when it was new. All right, I put it on the wagon here and moved it around the back of the house. Hopefully we can keep the wind away from the microphone enough so you can hear me. But where was I? Oh yeah. So McPherson struts in a car. And what this is a wall-mounted strut compressor. Now, if you want to replace the struts in your automobile, you can either take them to a garage and they will remove the strut assembly from the car. They will use a device like this to compress the large spring so that they can safely remove the strut cartridge, which is the part that typically goes bad on struts. They then put a new strut cartridge assembly into your existing spring, unless the spring is broken, which can happen, but it's rare, and then reinstall it back in the automobile. Now, obviously, you're going to pay a premium for this. So, of course, I wanted to replace the struts on my wife's Honda Pilot. So I go online and I go to rockauto.com and I have no affiliation with them. They don't give me so much as 2 nickels to rub together for my video channel or anything like that. So just get that out of the way. I just like going there because I routinely compare prices. If I need something right away, I tend to go to my local Napa. I tend to favor them over the other automotive supply houses in the area. But if I can wait, I tend to save quite a bit of coin by going to Rock Auto if they have it. So sure enough, I got the best price on replacement struts from Rock Auto. And the problem is, I get them in and then I realize that, well, in order to do this job as a do-it-yourselfer type, weekend warrior type, shade tree mechanic type, you really have no choice other than to go to your local auto parts store that rents tools and rent a device that was clearly made by somebody who really just hates human beings. It's a strut compressor kit, and what it consists of is it consists of some threaded rods with bolts on them and some clamps that are supposed to hook onto the spring, coil spring, and then you tighten down the nuts on the threaded rod and it compresses it. And you got to do a little bit on one side, a little on the other side, and you hopefully get it to evenly compress. This all being done while you have it hopefully firmly in a bench vise. There are more than one video online that can be found where you get to watch guys in the process of using one of those tools to compress the coil spring, only to have the tool slip off, lose its grip on the coil while the coil is compressed, which causes the coil to uncompress violently. It can be very dangerous. Matter of fact, a lot of people warn you about using this type of a device. All right, so anyways, I had seen enough of that to realize that that's not something I wanted to get involved with. Some cheap, made in Taiwan piece of crap spring compressor deal. So my thinking was, well, first I thought, well, all right, maybe I should rethink replacing the struts altogether and just have the garage do it. The problem is, the garage, normally they get the labor, but they also make money on the parts. So if you supply your own parts to the garage, naturally they have to increase the labor charge to you to make up what they're losing on the parts profit. So I spoke to my local mechanic, and he informed me that if I brought in my own struts, that he would charge me $300 to replace to put them in. So basically $300 labor to do the two sides. So then I thought, hey, you know what? I looked at how easy it is to replace the struts, as far as removing the strut assembly from the automobile and reinstalling it. It's not that difficult. The hard part really is changing the coil springs over from the old struts to the new struts. So I decided what I was going to do is I would remove the strut assembly from the car, use one of our other vehicles, drive it to a station that had one of these machines, and pay him to just change the coil over. And then I'd come, install it in the car, and then do the other side. Drive back and do that, okay? I conservatively estimated that I might have to pay as much as $60 per side, $120. Well, if it was going to be $300, I just saved myself $180, so it was worth it to me. And maybe he would even do it a little less, I don't know. Or maybe I could find another station that'd be willing to do it less, I don't know. You know, take pity on the guy and, you know, do it for him. So anyways, along pops this thing, this little slice of heaven, and I realized, hey, if I can get this right, it's going to be worth it for me, because even if the guy would switch them over for $30 a side, that's $60. Well, the difference is I paid $75 for this whole machine. I'll be able to, I'm pretty sure, safely change over my strut springs, and when I'm finished, I can sell this thing. And I already looked. The last one of these that sold on eBay, one of these Braniks, used condition, not as rough looking as this one, sold for $300. All right, and it was local pickup, meaning, hey, they realize this thing's heavy, it's going to be a pain in the ass to ship. If you're local, we'll sell it to you. So somebody paid $300 for one of these things. So I think I can get $200 or $300 for this thing from one of my local shops. There's actually a couple of garages that are opening up. They're fairly new owners. They might not even have one of these yet. So my thinking is what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little TLC on these things. This thing will come apart easy enough. I'm going to clean up all of the rust on that lead screw there and the rust on these here, and I think I'm going to be able to clean this up and make it look really nice and presentable, and end up actually making money on this deal. So this is the last 3 items I bought from a vendor. Another vendor, I stopped at his table. He had quite a few drill bits, end mills, high-speed steel end mills. I started going through a box, picking stuff out, making a pile. We ended up kind of going back and forth on price. He had carbide inserts, you know, little plastic trays, assortments. Again, a lot of unusual ones, oddball, mongrel ones. I've done that dance before. I've still got tons of those. So, you know, if I can get them like dirt cheap, sure, I'll pick them up, play around with them. But we couldn't come to an agreement, and he wasn't unreasonable on his asking price, more than likely, considering how many drill bits and high-speed end mills there were that I had pulled aside, and a lot of them were in really good shape. But it's just at this point, I just have so many of those that I'm kind of fickle now. It's kind of hard to sell me those. I want to get them for like, you know, 50 cents a piece. So I kind of gave up on trying to do anything there. He also had a Brown and Sharp, interesting little die holder. It was Brown and Sharp was the name on it. It had all these just individual little almost like dies that fit in the nose of the thing, and the nearest thing I could figure is that it's from a Brown and Sharp screw machine. So that thing there, I could have had that for 10 bucks. I probably should have bought it, but again, you know, I'd already spent a bunch of money. That, you know, I'm on my way out. But then I dig through a box and I spot adjustable parallels, and I take a look at them closer and I realize, son of a gun, these are stair adjustable parallels. Now, he only had the 2 in the box. And then I spotted this whistle, which don't ask me why, but I don't know, I kind of liked it. It's the Acme Thunderer, made in England. So, give you a better look at that. I guess I should give you a better look at the parallels too, huh? So we got surface rust on these parallels, but they're probably going to work perfectly fine. I'm probably going to clean up all right. So I gave $3 for these 3 pieces. So this really isn't worth that much. I looked it up. It turns out it's not that valuable, and it doesn't even sound that great, really. But these two Strut adjustable parallels for $1 a piece, that was a good deal. So that's just about the whole video. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that there were 2 large items that I was going to show you in this video that I scored. Well, one of them was that spring compressor, and all of this other stuff in the spring compressor was from this past weekend at the flea market. But there was one item I actually picked up the previous weekend. Actually, it was during the week. Long story short, I'm going by this house, and lo and behold, they're having a yard sale. So I'm looking around in the garage there, and I spot this old table saw in the back behind like another table and stuff. And it wasn't clearly marked for sale, so I inquired. I just happened to mention it. I said, hey, that's a nice old table saw there. And then she starts to explain to me, it actually belonged to the gentleman who lived across the street. He passed away years ago. The thing had been sitting in their garage. Then her husband passed away, and it was still there. And now the house is being sold, and they're closing on Friday, and she's trying to get everything out of there. And she says, yeah, we got to get rid of that thing. She said, if you know anybody who wants it, I'm just going to give it away. And I said, well, if you're going to give it away, I'll take it. So I scored this table saw for free. It's a good thing this table saw was free because, well, for one thing, I have more table saws than I need. I actually just sold a small, nice little Craftsman saw, which is what this is. So this is an early Craftsman. These are actually, I guess there's some guys even collecting this era of Craftsman woodworking tools. So one of the giveaways as to what era this saw is from is this interesting aluminum, this interesting design they have on this aluminum piece right here. It's almost like a little circle, burnished, overlapping circles. And it gives kind of a neat look. And then, of course, this chrome knob. And this style with these colors, this blue lettering, there's a way to date. You know, guys who really know these saws can date them just by looking at that kind of stuff. The other thing that drew me to this saw was the stand. So the guy made the base for the saw out of these legs that he got from somewhere. They're nice heavy steel or cast iron legs. Kind of made a wooden draw to catch the sawdust there. But this plywood is bolted to it. So once these bolts are removed, these two legs are basically completely separate from each other. So you could spread them pretty far apart. I think they might even be from a early woodworking lathe or something like that. They got some pretty bad rust down at the base there because of the fact that I think they were in a basement that actually flooded. Another great thing about these early saws is that the top is cast iron. It's not stamped steel, and even the extension over here is cast iron. And I've actually seen just this extension shelf here. I've seen these actually sell on eBay. We got what looks like it might be a period correct Craftsman motor on here. Now, the thing she did say was she said that the saw didn't run and that she believes it was popping this red button out, which is a circuit breaker. However, I can see that whoever rigged this thing up really did kind of a weird thing with the belt orientation. You get the camera angle straight on and you can see that the belt is going off at quite an angle there, and it looks like it's even rubbing the blade carrier. So this should be slid over that way more. Just for the heck of it, let's see what it does. Oh, that actually will start. There's nothing wrong with that. This mount almost appears to be the style where this is supposed to hang down below. So I could just take that off. A little bit of bearing noise there, folks. Got a little cap on the end here, and it says equipped with ball bearings. So this is kind of funky. This whole thing just slides right over. I wonder if this rod is supposed to go right through this slot. Maybe this belt's too long. That is one noisy unit. This belt is junk. Oh yeah, this belt, in addition to being shredded, it's got like a permanent curve here from years of just being stuck in that position. I just went to put this belt on that I found hanging around and felt this pulley, and it felt kind of loose, and then I realized I can actually hold the arbor of the saw and spin the pulley around on the shaft with ease. So we gotta tighten a set screw by the looks of it. Actually, I just looked under there. There is no set screw. Well, let's see. I found the grub screw. Looks like it might be the right size. Oh, tough spot to get to. I wonder if there's a flat spot on this shaft that's supposed to... Not gonna be able to get that very tight. That doesn't sound very happy, does it? Oh, that might just be hitting the guard. There's nothing wrong with this saw. Makes it even better. Yeah, don't mind the mess. I wasn't expecting company. Now, I got one more thing to check before we close this out. My mighty Fairchild Industries rotary tool. Boy, that's really dramatic. It says model number 2. Seems to work. The only thing I'm not sure about is this. Actually, I think it's just this burr that's on here, or this stone is bent. I guess that's a keeper. Alright guys, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching, and I'll try and get this place a little spruced up for next time.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over!